Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammad wa alihi tahirin. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Yes, before we start lesson number 25, just one or two points I wanted to mention. There was a British scientist, physicist, Stephen Hawking, who said, there may be a God, but we don't need him. Now here, this statement is very correct, because he's speaking about the Judeo-Christian God. And it's a God which many Muslims even, when they interpret God, it's this God which they're interpreting. Where once upon a time, there's Allah and there's nothing else. So the first problem is non-existence, we said is impossible. But when the way they explain creation, they say there's Allah and non-existence, nothing, only Allah. That's the first problem. Then they say Allah created something out of non-existence. That's the second problem. How can you create existence from non-existence? The third problem then would be that thing which Allah has, assuming it's possible, which it isn't, but let's assume it is, that thing which is created out of non-existence is separate from Allah. It's mutually exclusive from Allah. So you're limiting Allah. Now that, it's a rational analysis I just gave, but we have a hadith too. Imam Sadiq asked the companion, someone said Allahu Akbar, Imam Sadiq said, what do you understand from Allahu Akbar? He said, Allah is greater than everything. Imam Sadiq said, you've limited Allah. You've limited him. Because you see Allah on one side and things on the other side. You see them as mutually exclusive. So Stephen Hawking was right. A very good comment he made. But if you were to explain to him how the Urafa see Allah, هو الأول والآخر والظاهر والباطن, pure existence, Ya Mawjood, in Natural Balagha, in Du'ay Mujir, Ya Mawjood, is pure existence, not existence in a particular size or shape, pure existence. Here, Stephen Hawking can't say I don't believe in pure existence, because he's dealing with it. It's the very fabric of everything, every formula he makes, everything he sees. He can't here say, we don't need pure existence. That's because then, what do we have then? Okay? He may deny it, but he can't say there isn't pure existence. But he may deny it. That's his choice. So in reality, every human being, since pure existence is the most evident thing we have, no one can say it doesn't exist. So no one can say Allah doesn't exist. Allah is pure existence. That Allah you've created for yourself like a human being up in the skies, managing things and punishing this one and that one, no. But people may deny it, and they become kafir. That's one thing. Another thing they can't say doesn't exist is me. Everyone says I am. That they accept. No one can say there's no I. No one can say I am not. It's impossible. It's like no one can say pure existence is not. Now here, one of the aqli, intellectual exercising Ayatollah Hassan Zadeh is doing in this book is starting with this premise that you can't say there is no me. He said, okay, with this premise with this given, let's now dissect it and see what is it. That we can do with exercising the mind. There may be differences of opinion, it doesn't matter, everyone bring their proof and let's see where we go. But if someone says, I am not, it doesn't make sense. So these two always have in mind. Okay. Lesson number 25. So in lesson number 23, there were a long list of questions we posed. And he said that these questions need answers, and we are seekers of answers. So let's start. So we have an essence, and that essence is me. And we also have a body. So far, in very concise terms, we've established that the body, that the me, is other than the body. There's going to be very firm philosophical proofs coming later, but right now, in layman's terms, we've accepted that this me is other than the body. Now this me, we have to give it a name. The name isn't important, but let's give it a name for now. There were a choice of different names. We're calling it nafs, or soul, but it's referring to this me. We've also established that I, as a human being, have one individuality. This me is one individual. It's not two. The identity of me is one, i.e., all the actions that I do, I eat, I study, my eye, my hand, it's all traced back to me, I. Not to another reality other than the me. And this shows that this me is one individual. I have one identity. I'm not two individuals. I don't have two identities. All my actions which emanate from me aren't traced back to two mutually exclusive realities. It all comes back to me. So whatever I do, all the actions, different things, I attribute it to that one same reality. And for now we're calling that reality me. So I learned this, I did this, I dreamt, be it in childhood, the childhood I, the adult I, the elderly I. That I is one individual. As a childhood, I ate. As an adult, I studied. As an elderly, I am walking. It's the same individual. The actions change, the appearances change, attributes change, but it's always traced to that one identity, one individual. So, if Mr. A lends Mr. B a book, let's say 50 years ago, and then after 50 years now, A is requesting the book back. Where were you all this time? Remember, I gave you a book 50 years ago. Give it to me back. If Mr. B says, I'm not that person of 50 years ago, who will accept that? No one will accept that. These are very simple, self-evident realities that we are living day after day. Now, if you say, why is he the same person? Oh, there are secrets there. This will be opened up later. Why is Mr. B of 50 years ago and Mr. B of today, why are they the same person? What's the constant? That constant seems not to be a physical thing because all the cells of the body change every 7 years. So even that constant seems to be other than the body. Right now we can say very loosely and concisely that constant is me. That's the constant. But we want to dissect this me. What is it? The stuff that it's made out of. What is the me? That's what we want to know. Or for example, if I stole something And then 30 years later, the police found me and they said, he's the criminal. They come to me. And let's say I had a hand transplant during this time. Can I say, no, that hand stole the money, not me? See, so I stole something 30 years ago. Then, after a number of years, I had a hand transplant. That hand which took no longer is. If they were to find me 30 years later, can I say to them, it wasn't me? I didn't steal it? Of course not. Okay. Now, this body and soul, this body, but the physical side, there's no problem there. But that me, which we're calling a soul, it seems that these two are not two integrated realities. Now this is getting delicate here. As I say, today, tomorrow, day after, it's getting quite exciting. This body and soul seem not to be two realities which are integrated with one another. It seems to be the case that they're not two realities. It's one reality. Why? It's not like, for example, whiteness and the wall. Whiteness is one reality. The wall is another reality. Yes, the whiteness depends on the wall, but it's two realities. This whiteness, you can attribute many things to it. It's bright, luminous, less bright, and so on and so on. The wall, you can attribute many things to it independently. It's big, small, made out of this, made out of that. But the body and soul, maybe, is not two realities. It may be one reality. Why? Because with the body and soul, you attribute different attributes. You attribute it to one thing. You know, the whiteness, you attribute it to many things you attribute it with. The wall, you attribute it with many things, like big, small, made out of chalk, made out of stone. You can do that separately. But with all the attributes that we see within the human being, with body and soul, you always trace it back not to two separate things. You trace it back to one reality. You don't say the physical eye sees. You don't say the physical finger writes. You don't say the physical brain thinks. You say, I see, I write, I think. Look, these seeing, writing, thinking, you don't attribute to the physical, to the body. You trace it back to the I, the me. So it seems for now, with this logic, that even, for example, I digest, even digest, you trace it back to I digested the food. You don't say for example, the intestines digested it. So it seems with this kind of rationale for now, and it seems to be the way, that the body and soul, they're not two realities, mutually exclusive, and then you want to integrate them. That's not the case. It seems to be one reality. Hence, the relationship between body and soul is not like a relationship between a bird and the cage, like the poets would say. Although the poets say it for our simplicity. It's not like a body and the bird and the cage. Why? Because the bird and the cage are two different, mutually exclusive realities. They're mutually exclusive. It's not like the rider and the horse. Remember those questions. The rider is one reality, the horse is one reality. It's not like the admiral and the ship. It's not like the king and the kingdom. These are all two mutually exclusive realities. With the body and soul, we don't have this. So here, it seems that this soul and body, it's one reality. They're not mutually exclusive. And all the manifestations are traced back to one reality, which is me. Now it's seeing, I see. Hearing, I hear. Touching, I touch. If it's thinking, rationalizing, it's all traced back to me, I. Okay, here lesson 25 ends. Then we go to lesson 26. He says, okay, so far we've established that this man, which has body and soul, this man is one individual with one identity. It's one reality. But yes, we can say it's multi-dimensional. But the dimensions are not mutually exclusive to one another, because it's all traced back to that one thing. We can say it's multi-layered, multi-dimensional, but it's one reality. It's not like the whiteness and wall. It's two realities. And it's all traced back to me. You say, I ate, my head, my hands, I think, and so on and so forth. So he summarizes the previous lesson, and then he continues. He says, okay, let's now closely analyze some states that arise, some properties which arise in man. He says, you imagine a stone, and the stone weighs 20 kilograms, for example. 1 hour from now, that stone, if you put it to weigh it on the scales, it'll still be 20 kilograms. 1 week later, it'll still be 20 kilograms. Even 1 year later, 1 century later, it's still going to be roughly the same. Maybe a few milligrams here or there, but it's still 20 kilograms. He starts with that premise first. Now, with me and you. Imagine a man, although he doesn't give these numbers, but I'm trying to simplify it. A man who's 70 kilograms and 1 meter 70, for example. And that person can usually carry their limit in carrying something is 20 kilograms. They can't carry more than 20 kilograms. If they want to jump, they can jump 3 meters. They can't jump more than 3. That's their limit, this particular man. They can't jump for more than 3 meters. If they want to break branches of wood, it has to be within a few millimeters or centimeters. If it gets a bit wider, the wood, they can't break the piece of wood. But that man, imagine, has entered a state of anger, or has entered a state of excessive love or anger, but he's entered this state. Before he could only carry 20 kilograms, now he can carry 40. Before he could only jump 3, but now because someone may be attacking him or whatever, he can jump 6 meters, for example. Before he can only break wood which is 1 centimeter width, now he can break if it's even 4 centimeters or something like that. You know what I mean? But it's the same body, 70 kilograms. The height is the same. The weight hasn't changed. So why the change? Before only he could carry 20 kilograms. So where did this carrying 40 kilograms come from? Maybe some of you, your mind has gone to Khaybar, the door of Khaybar, Amir al-Mu'mineen. Actually, the hadith there says he didn't carry the door with his jismaniya body. It was with his ruhaniya dimension he carried it. That has to be explained. So here, these states of anger, which, for example, led to carrying double the weight, these things, is not a result of the body, because the body has remained the same. So these states have to be other than the body. It's not the body. And if it's other than the body, but it's still traced to me. It's still traced to me. You can't trace it back to the body, these states. The body is the same, it's a constant in this example. But the me has existentially become empowered. It's become stronger. It's doing something. This extra manifestation, you can't trace it back to the body, but you can trace it back to me. Because I was angry and I did this. I jumped 3 meters more, and so on and so forth. Now, with that in mind, and we've established, albeit concisely, that the soul and the body is one reality, and all these states of the soul, and even our bodily dimensions, it's all traced, all attributed and traced back to me, then without me, we see that the body will decompose. For example, at death, one example. Hence, if this me is other than the body, that's one premise. And if it's one reality, this soul and body, it's one reality, and this me is other than the body, it's one identity, one individual, it's all attributed to this me, we can conclude that this body that we have, the physical body, all our limbs, inner, outer, they are all physical manifestations of me. Look, we said the body is other than me. So there are different dimensions. We said though it's one reality. We said they're not mutually exclusive. If we have that here, and it's all traced back to me, and say my body, my brain, my hand, my feet, here the body, outer, inner limbs, all organs, everything, whatever is physical, seems to be what they call a subtle, a lowly, but physical manifestation of me. So this multi-dimensional reality that we have, we call man, is multi-dimensional. Some of its dimensions are manifestations of other dimensions. Okay, and here lesson 26 ends. In lesson 27, Ayatollah Hassan Zola says, okay, let us add 2 more principles then. Number 24, man is an extended, i.e. multi-layered, multi-dimensional, and individual, but multi-dimensional, but individual, existent, spreading from the level of the soul to the level of the body. Principle 25, the apparent, what we see, existential effects and manifestations of the body that we see, they are all emanations, they're all illuminations of this me. Look, when the me goes, it will all decompose. Lesson 26, so he starts with those 2 principles, and he continues. He says, Avicenna. He says, Avicenna has said that people are amazed as to how magnets attract iron to itself, but are unaware of how the soul uses and dominates the body, subjugates the body, has the body under control. They're amazed when they see a magnet here and iron particles, and they quickly is attracted to the magnet. But why don't you look, introspect within? Why don't you look at yourself and see this incredible event which is happening, where a soul is encompassing and controlling the body. This is more amazing, he says. Why? He says the material body is moving. When I'm walking, my legs are moving, my hands, everything is moving. Even though the constitution of a material thing is such that it is still and stationary. Look, this is still. These are all stationary around me. Now this is also physical, so why is this moving? If it was only physical, okay, and you put it somewhere, it should stop. When you look at me, you see a physical me. So why is this physical me moving? We don't see anything pushing it. We don't see any physical thing pushing me right now. Something which is material by its very nature, it will remain still. That's its constitution. It won't move unless you push it. So why are we moving? Why are our physical limbs all moving? And it's continually moving. And this is really amazing, he says. All these movements are under the jurisdiction and subjugation of the me. And animals too, like man, move. Their bodies move. And all this is traced back to a power. Now for us we say me, for them their me. It's all traced back to a power, a force, under whose dominion the animal or the human body lies. Now, if this me or force or power separates from that human body or the animal body, the body decomposes. And therefore, such movements and different states will no longer arise. There'll be no movement anymore, because now it's only matter. The limbs, the body parts, all disharmonize. The harmony will be broken. They disassociate, they decompose. And so we see that all our senses, all our movements, all our thoughts, all our states of joy, anger, everything, all emanate from the soul, from me. What we haven't explored the stuff of that me yet. Excuse me, something's bothering my eye, yes. But what we can say is that this soul, whatever it is, it's a unifying principle which preserves the body parts of the animal or the human and their functions. Because without it, all these will vanish, perish. So it's a unifying source of life, source of animation, source of movement. Now, what kind of existent is this me, is the soul? Especially when it doesn't allow one of its dimensions to inhibit, to bar, to prevent another of its dimensions. Meaning, it doesn't allow one of its functions to not let another function happen. For example, if I'm hearing, it's one function of the me. That has it won't inhibit, it won't prevent me digesting. It won't prevent me walking. It won't prevent me being happy. So everything is in place. Everything is working. One dimension doesn't bar the other. All of them can, but they're all emanations of me, all traced back to the me. And this amazing substance has harmonized all the body parts to work together. And therefore, more introspection is required. And he ends lesson 27. In lesson 28, he starts by saying this harmony that we see in humans and animals and plants, the order that we see in humans, animals and plants. When we see this harmony and order, we see it's all based on knowledge. There's knowledge behind this. There's power behind this. There's a reasoning behind it. There's intelligence behind it. Look, even Richard Dawkins, who wrote The God Delusion, who's a scientist, and in that book he says, he gives the name of this Latin name of a plant, and even he who denies God in the book God Delusion, he says, when you see this plant which does this function and this function, there has to be an intelligence behind it. Now, here too, when we just see animals, study the life of animals, see how the bee, people have written books and volumes on bees. There was one French scientist who, for 60 years, he just studied one species of spiders, one class of spiders, all his life. Yes. And if you study it, plants, animals, yourself, you can just, there's a life, there's knowledge, power, there's order backing all this. It's all running in harmony. So, that which is in control and which is commanding isn't only seen in plants or animals, but the whole abode of existence, okay? Everywhere in the cosmos. It's all, you see, it's all manifesting knowledge. It's all manifesting power, these attributes of perfection. It's all in play. With animals and plants too, with humans too. Then with humans, okay, we're human. At least here we can then, when you say everything in the cosmos, there's a power behind it, there's knowledge behind it, there's an order behind it. Okay, now I'm a human, part of the cosmos. That's an animal. Can't we ascertain, by just comparing ourselves with animals or plants, that this life and knowledge and power that you speak, that is running the whole order of the cosmos, I have more of a share of that knowledge in me than that animal. We can't do that. And we can say, no, here, with me as a human, there's more of this knowledge, there's more of this power. That much one can do. And all these different things you can attribute to yourself. Okay. So he gives that statement, all these are, all rational statements, all just exercising the mind. There's nothing bizarre. Then he goes back to movement again. Remember, we discussed movement? He says, when you look at your surroundings, all these existing things, including me, all of them, we said, were moving from deficiency to perfection. We've gone through that. And these things, me, animal, plant, and other things, they're gradually acquiring more and more perfection along the way. But we said, with humans, the ilm, the knowledge factor is more than other creatures. That was the criterion which differentiates us from others. He says, where does this movement come from? Who is the exiter? Exiter, important term, we've discussed it before. Who is the exiter? From exiting a given existent, from potentiality to actuality. And in the man's body, all these limbs we see exist. They have a specific function. They have a specific nature, constitution. They have a specific food which feeds them. Who has arranged all this? Now we may say, me, because it's all traced back to me. He says, no, it's too early. With all these limbs, which have these specific constitutions, specific food, it's moving. Who's arranging for this? You're saying yourself? It's a bit too early. Introspect a bit more. Where was this me of yours, the soul? When the body was an embryo, where was this soul? In the embryo? Outside the embryo? If outside, how does the soul then control and shape and beautify the embryo? It gets bigger and bigger, it's shaping the embryo. You're saying, me. But can you be the exeter yourself? He says, this needs further dissection. This needs further opening up. That's lesson 28. In 29, he says, okay. First he gives a quick summary of 1 or 2 points before. I see, I eat, I think. These things, these manifestations, you trace to me. But let's go back a bit. The embryo, right now we're adults. Eating, you say, I eat. I this, I that. We even said all these are manifestations of the soul. We said all our limbs are manifestations of the soul. And we said it's one reality. Okay, but let's go back. What shapes and molds that human? It was an embryo, unicellular. What shaped it? Oh, can you say me? Oh, this is an important point here. Can you say me here? Is there a me? But can you say soul? Actually, if we take a break here, and maybe the brothers can bring the whiteboard, I just thought of something maybe I can explain on the whiteboard. Sorry about that. So we'll end here. We'll continue in a few minutes, inshallah. Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So here, right now as adults, we don't have a problem. When we say I eat, I study, I think, these are traced back to the me. And there is a me. I am. But here now he says, go back a bit. So let's say here, we say the me, from this stage onwards, there is a me. Let's just, now which stage? If this is time, this, how many months or years, when does it start? We can speak about later. In the Sharia, they say this me starts at 4 lunar months. At 4 lunar months, in the womb of the mother, we have a me. Because movement is voluntary. Now, 4 months, does it mean for every individual at 4 months exactly? No. It's like puberty, it changes. But the Sharia, as a legal protocol, says 4 lunar months. When can you say there's a me there? It's because it's moving now. Before, the movement was gravitational. It was a reflex. But at 4 months, let's say, the fetus is moving volitionally. It's voluntary. Okay, it's rudimentary, it's only a fetus. But it escapes, pain. It moves away. Or if the mother shouts, it's suddenly, mothers know this much, they sense it. They know when it's volitional, when it's gravity. But that, I don't want to sidetrack. There's a certain time, and for everyone it may be different, but the Sharia just gives a protocol. In the Sharia it says, now we have a person here. When the me arises, there's a person. That's why if you abort after that, you have to give the blood money, complete. But everything here, like eating, sleeping, thinking, you can trace back to this, me. There's no problem. But let's go back. Here. Let's go these 4 months. This 12 means months. It's a medical notation. In these 4 months, we have a unicellular embryo. Who is shaping this? Making it grow and evolve in the womb more and more. You can't say me here. Because there is no me. Can you? Can you say me? Can you say that I shaped? There was no you. But something is happening here. It's moving. It's evolving from a unicellular to a 3 kilogram child. Well, at 4 months it's maybe 1 kilogram, but. So, all these movements, who are you going to attribute that to? The best architecture, the best weaving you see here happening. Who is moving it? Who is the exeter? And all these different actions, is it traced back to me? There is no me. So how are we going to solve this? What I was thinking of, and the reason I came here, well, to explain this, and when with medical science, many things have become evident. For example, many scholars of old believe that animals don't have souls. Mullah Sadr said, yes, they do. Avicenna, for example, said they don't. Today, they've proven that animals dream, so they have a soul. That's one. Another thing which they've proven is, in Christianity, the Catholics believe that on fertilization, when the egg and the sperm, when fertilization happens, okay, this unicellular embryo, which has just fertilized right now, it's only one cell, it's an embryo. They say it's haram to abort. We say the same. But the reasoning differs. They say because it has a soul. We say the same too. The difference is this. They say this soul is immaterial. That's the first time. And we're mentioning a new term here. Immaterial. We say, no, wait, I have to stop here. Are you saying this unicellular, material embryo? You see it has a soul, we may agree with you, but the soul is immaterial, not material? They say, yes, it's immaterial. Here say, okay, we have to prove it. So they have philosophical discussions. Now, I don't want to enter those, but I want to know what medical science proved which one's right. And the way they did it is this, that if you imagine the unicellular embryo, it's one cell, then one cell, then it becomes, it's growing, it becomes 2 cells, then it becomes 4 cells, 8 cells, grows into an embryo. What they did was, let's say this is one animal. At this stage, the 4-cell stage of one embryo, so it's one embryo. At the 4-cell stage, they separated the 4. Look, it's one embryo here. It's one individual. Science came, they separated these 4. So now you have 4 separate cells. And they put each one into one animal womb. So they put these 4 into 4 different animals. And they all procreated. 4 animals were born. Now the question is this. How can something which is immaterial be divided? Because divisibility is a property of material things, not immaterial things. And then, the scientists, once they learn something, it's very difficult to control them. What they did was, with 4 embryos at the unicellular stage, they did something called clumping, where these 4, they clumped together. Now the Catholic would say these 4 each has an immaterial soul. So these 4 were clumped into one, put in a womb. How many children came? 1. How can 4 immaterial souls become one? You see? Okay, I know we haven't introduced immaterial yet, but that was a subtle point. Anyway, going back. So here, right now, the focus is this. In this phase, with the shaping and the molding of the embryo, who do you attribute it to? Who do you can't say me. So far, have that in mind? Okay. So, with that question now, he says, now this was written, 60, 70 years ago. Or maybe a bit less, actually, before the revolution, though. So, he doesn't speak of genes and genetics and DNA. He speaks of a more macrocosmic level of that. When we say who beautified the embryo, who beautified it, molded it, shapened it, he says, yes, there's a faculty called the beautifying faculty. We have it, he says. That shapes the body in a specific shape, size, and order. Then we say, is it a separate entity from the soul? And we say, no, it's not. It's one dimension of the soul. Like you have a hand, you have a leg, you have thinking, you have a brain. You have a faculty of your body at that time existed. And by the way, we say we have a soul at that stage, but we're just saying it's not immaterial. It's a material soul. That's okay to say, but we'll explain it more. And like the body, which we said is a dimension of me, here though we say we'll take away the me, we'll stick to the soul again, only soul, which is more comprehensive. It includes the me and it includes the period before the me. There is a soul there. It's a source of animation. It's a source of growth. And it has many functions. One of the functions is the shapening, the molding of this embryo. In the same way, it has metabolism, reproduction, growth, excretion, all these things. And this soul, not me, but the soul is shaping this embryo. And like all other faculties, like seeing and hearing, this is also one faculty of the soul, and its functioning is that of developing the embryo. And when you see the development of the embryo, you just can't help it. It's all based on intelligence, knowledge. It's all there. So a question now arises, are each of these faculties, including this shaping faculty in the pre-me phase, are they independent identity-wise? Are they independent from the soul? Individual-wise, i.e., is it a mutually exclusive thing from the soul? Or is it like the other things, not mutually exclusive, they're just manifestations of the soul? For after me, it was easy. Before me, we say there was a soul. There was no me, but there was a soul. The soul is producing. And all the body parts, albeit little, of an embryo, with all the functions, they're manifestations of the soul, but they're manifestations of a material soul. Because the soul is material. Clumping showed that. Or when at the 4-cell blastocyst stage, when they separated it, it shows properties of dividing properties, of division. These are materialistic properties. So the soul is material before the me arises. And it has many aspects, many physical things to it, many parts, organs. It's growing in the embryo in that 4-month stage before. And it's all under the subjugation also of that soul. It's all controlled there. If you say this faculty of shaping this embryo is something independent, then you would have two individuals. and we've discussed this before, everything is traced back to one. Now in the embryo stage, that one we say is traced back to the soul. It's the soul's faculties, and that soul is physical. So it's all dimensions of this soul, and after the me, it's still dimensions of the soul, just we add this me at a particular point onwards. Have that in your minds for now. We need it for later. And here the scholars have said it's like a tree with its branches. A tree has branches, leaves, fruits. The whole thing together is called a tree. Look, he says, focus on the tree. Do you know when we say the tree's orange, for example? Is the tree and the orange, are they mutually exclusive? Like the bird and cage, rider and horse? Or even the tree and its orange, the tree and the branches? Is it one reality, not mutually exclusive? It seems to be one reality. Yes, when the fruit separates from the tree, that has now separated. But this growth, the branches, the leaves, the fruits, it's all in unity with the life of that tree. It's one tree. These are all different faculties of the tree, different parts of this one reality. This tree is multidimensional. Now, with man too, all its faculties, they're not mutually exclusive from man. They're all dimensions of man, of me. And the functions of these faculties are the functions of the soul. You say, I see, I eat, I digest. The soul sees, the soul eats, the soul grows. Okay. So, the unifying, all-preserving principle in all these outer and inner faculties and body parts is me at one point onwards, or at least say soul, which covers the whole thing. And these faculties and functions are established through me, and none of these parts or faculties are independent from me. They're not independent, either action-wise or existence-wise. Existence-wise, because there's only one individual. Action-wise, without me. Can they be seeing? Can they be hearing? They can't. So all of them are properties of the soul. However, and I'll end with this. Think about this question now. We have a problem here. Although unfortunately I've given the answer maybe in that explanation I gave. He says, this me or soul, with all its faculties and functions, including the shaping function in the embryo stage. Okay, that shaping faculty which shapens the embryo qualitatively and quantitatively. With different limbs it grows. When the embryo is in the womb, how is the soul associated with it? That there's no answer yet. Or you may know, but I haven't opened that yet. How does the soul come into existence? Now, this soul, with utmost knowledge and order, with all its manifestations based on an order, with knowledge, power, and so on and so forth, has brought about, in the embryo, incredible manifestations. On day 1, day 2, day 3, the first week, second week, third week, fourth week, the heart is developing, the ear, the hands, slowly. These are incredible things that the soul is attributed to the soul of the embryo. These are incredible things that the soul is showing. So why, this is the question, why, when the child is born and they want to weave a carpet, why do they need a weaver to teach them? They want to build a building. Why do they need an architect to teach them how to build a building? You are saying everything is attributed to the soul. This soul of yours produced the best weaving with all its arteries and veins weaved in the best possible way. And now you want to weave a carpet? You say, I need a teacher? There's something wrong here. Now you want to build a building. The soul has built and produced this embryo with the best of molding, the best forms. Now you want to build a simple building with bricks. You see, an architect has to come and teach me. Why? Why is this like that? Why do they need to be taught? The soul had everything, was producing everything. Here, he says, scrutiny is required here. And inshallah, in the next session, which is now lesson 30, lesson 31, 32, then lesson 33, everything's going to change, inshallah. Yes. But if you think of this answer, inshallah, it will be of use. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala alihi.
The 4-month stage in the womb, that volition, the beginning of volition starts when the nervous system connects from the top of the body to the bottom. There's like from the embryo stage to that point, the nervous system is sporadically like growing.
Right.
And then at that 4-month stage, they all connect, and that's when the senses start functioning.
Right.
So the atheists
Yes.
say that there's nothing but a biological sequence
Yes.
that's happening, and this is just
Yes.
once the brain and the nervous system connect, that's when it starts to feel and move.
Yes. So this will be answered, inshallah, in the next session. It's a pity if I give the answer right now, because then it'll, kind of everything will be spoiled for tomorrow's session. I think in Swahili it's a pity they say nasikitikoa. They have that? I heard it from someone. What do you say? It's a pity, it's a shame in Swahili? Nasikitikoa. Yes.
What is it?
Okay. You have that? No?
Nasikitiko.
You have to forgive my pronunciation, yes?